I'm going to, first of all, give a bit of background about my dad, who, like I say, is probably the reason why I like creative writing. And then I'm going to read about 5 poems of his and about 7 poems of mine. So I was always a bit of a quiet observer. So going down the route of a visual artist was a good option for me. But having a dad who was a writer and an actor has had a big impact, and it's definitely given me a love of story writing and drama. So in my early career, before I did my pottery, I was a theatre designer. So I connected with theatre in this way. And my dad came to live down the road from me about 8 years before he died. And during that time, he did a lot of writing. He wrote a lot of plays and a massive novel book as well. But I think partly that was because I took him to a creative writing group every week. And so we'd be given a prompt, and which is like a starting line or some words to include. We'd write there on the spot for an hour, and then we'd share it. And so he had an audience, which is what he really loved. And I went with him because I knew that he needed to go, otherwise he would have got very isolated. But it was really good for my creativity too. So for about 8 years, I went every week and had to write a story, write a poem. Inevitably, you do things a lot, you get better at it. But my dad, as I suppose I've got older, I began to realise what a miracle it is really that he ever became a writer and an actor, because he came from a very poor background. His parents had nothing to do with writing. His dad was a docker. He left school when he was 14. And in fact, his mum used to tell him that books would rot his brains. They were a family of 7 children, and 3 died during their childhood. So it really was a bit of a miracle. Another thing that happened when I brought him to live down the end of my road is I managed to persuade him at the age of 80 to join me in a community theatre production. So it was a very huge cast, and we were all involved in writing the play, and we all had to write about our own personal milestones. And he chose to write about his older brother, George, who was 14 years older than him. And I think it was then that I realised that how important his George was maybe in giving him that feeling that he could succeed and do whatever he dreamed of doing. And because he spoke about him on the stage during this community production. And he also was an extraordinary person. He taught himself several different languages. He worked as a spy for MI6 in the war. He was a lightweight boxer and a successful businessman. So I think, even though my dad didn't see him that much, he sort of knew of him, and he talked about that in this community production. So after he also helped my dad pay to go to RADA, which is a sort of famous drama school in London, and he also won a scholarship to go to RADA, and from there he became an actor, acting in rep theatre, in repertory theatre. And then he tried to write a book which turned into a play, which then won a prize as the best play in 1964. The play went to the Royal Court, which is a famous theatre, and then to the Prince of Wales, to the West End, and had Harry Corbett in it and Michael Crawford, who were sort of stars at that time. So that was, he started, and I was born at about the same time as that was all happening. After that, he worked for the BBC, and he wrote children's school television programs, and dramas for school, and he won an award for some of them as well, and he became a script editor after that. So the first poem I want to read is one that actually appears in a book, that a rather massive book that he wrote in his later years. And the story of this book it's a romantic, farcical fairy tale about a man who owns a pair of boots that have the power to guide him through life, to find his true love and his true path. And the boots help him and his lover to make their fortune through going into production and selling the boots, which in turn help others to find their true path. So I always felt that these boots were a bit like an analogy for the Latihan. And my dad was a Subud member, and he returned to it after, later in life, even though he spent a long time away from the Latihan. So I'm going to read the poem along with a little bit of the text, so that it's seated in the it shows how it appears in the book. It's about it comes in the book at the end, when they're successfully selling the boots, and one customer writes a poem about how the boots helped her. Mrs. Amalia Pilkers-Gill, who claimed to have found God in a bramble patch thanks to her boots, and she celebrated this in her charming and for some justly acclaimed poem, Life's Sweetest Rapture. We came upon a garden wild, sweet eglantine and briars combined, with rancorous roses, thorn defiled, to bar our way, my shoes and me. But magicked feet so subtly, see, our problem sifted, skirts uplifted, over we leap both bush and tree, to force away my shoes and me. Yet prospects still are scarcely cheery, each path we wend a vile dead end. Soon we may grow teary weary, losing our way, my shoes and me. But no, dear feet, we dare not fail, hope reviving, onward striving, till behold a bloom-strewn trail. We points our way, my shoes and me. And what is this, oh haloed sight? A grotto dim, a light within, on either side 2 angels bright. We bend the knee, my shoes and me. Yes, down we bend, that trembling knee, as a voice within that grotto dim speaks words of deep simplicity, to calm our fears and tell us we have found the way, my shoes and me. Hosannas sing to him on high, words that are too sacred far for human ear or human eye. But sure it is, we heard the cry. You've found the way, your shoes and you. Oh, bliss supreme, oh, joy unbound. Let the merry cymbals sound, a voice has spoken to betoken a birth is booked, my nook is took. One little cabin in the sky is now reserved. Oh bliss, oh joy, for me, my shoes and I. So this was issued in pamphlet form with a short introduction detailing her further thrilling experiences boot-wise, sold in the 100,000s, considerably boosting the finances and fame of Mrs. Pilkington, while obviously doing no harm whatsoever to company sales. So that's that one. So now I'm going to read a poem that my dad wrote as part of the writing group that I explained to you he went to. He wasn't really a poet, he was really a playwright, so there's always a dramatic feeling to all his poems. Life is a mirage, some might suggest, an illusion born of our ceaseless desire to matter, to be of some meaning and interest. To who? Ah, that other mirage, him up in the sky. Yes, God, him almighty, his angels and such, who would in any case, should he exist, be far too busy, too much in a rush, attending to other worlds to bother with us. But ours is a nothing, a speck too minute, in a cosmos too mighty, unaccountably immense. But in our nothingness, perhaps may note one genuine mirage of comfort and dance. Our dreams. Yes, dreams. For do they not create a parallel universe where we parade as hero, villain, fool, a seeming endless show, forever to be extended? Perhaps it is fantasy, escape. But yet, somehow, we survive in this, our dreams, our other life to be around when we have ended. Is this a fantasy and not a mirage that we may live on in dreams when mortal life has ended? And who knows, perhaps this is true. So I think that talks about his love of performing and how his writing gave his life real meaning and made him a person who mattered. He also was brought up a Catholic and I think suffered a bit of Catholic guilt. This one is called A Minute of Freedom. A minute, an hour, a month, a lifetime of it. Oh, please, yes, freedom. But what does it mean? A freedom from what? Nagging insecurity. The thought that somewhere out there is poised a giant threatening thumb, awaiting the order, the command to crush you, me, miserable worms, squash each and every one of us into blood jelly. We, all of us, are waiting that dread unknown, because it is out there. Oh, ain't no doubt of that. This thing that is threatening and will end all our happiness. Do we not live our whole life long under this fear? That one fine day, an innocent seeming buff envelope will plop through our letterbox, a summons from the Inland Revenue, or something from some ministry, an insidious little message from the powers that be. You have been found out. Your life of unworthiness has been exposed. You, yes, you, sir, are for the chop. Unless you can explain yourself. Perhaps it is something worse. A knock at the door. A menacing monster, dark blue shadow glimpsed through the skylight, waiting impatiently to carry you away. or even just a mousy, moth-eaten little man with ill-fitting false teeth who will insist so gently. Unfortunately, yes, sir, I am here for you. Your time is up. Sorry and all that, but come with me you must, immediately. All happiness, all freedom at an end. Oh, for 1 minute of release from all this all-pervading, ever-present fear. Oh, to escape the reckoning. But for what? From what? The curse of mortal sin? Is that it? The curse of Adam that haunts us all? Harking back, I suppose, of course, that dread day when kindly Creator, not half so kindly now, snatched the half-chewed apple from out of Eve's pretty jaw, kicked you, us, all of us, the whole blind screaming pack of us, out of paradise and into this gloomy, guilt-filled home that we call Earth. So this one is this is another one showing his dark sense of humour. A rainbow in the horizon and nothing in between, but nothing. Scrap land, desert sand, a devastating scene. We're doomed, then cried Sandy. I decided to play dumb. It was always that way with Sandy. He was the pessimistic one. But murmurs swelled behind me. He may be right, others rumed. I turned and faced them sternly. Who thinks that we are doomed? A dozen heads went nodding. 12 hands sought the sky. You fools, I screamed, you idiots, and I will tell you why. Observe the far horizon, that rainbow. There's a link. Rainbows follow rain, you twits. Rain for us to drink. 'Tis twice 10 miles to get there. We can manage in a day. Let's leave Sandy here to die, and we'll be on our way. So bravely then we started, and Sandy changed his tune. He limped along behind us, shouting, sorry, sorry, we're not doomed. Twice that day we laboured, that horizon to obtain, and found the rainbow faded. There, no bloody sign of rain. So it was, we perished. One by one we died. And last of all went Sandy. I was right, he cried. There, told you. So this one is not so dark, and sort of shows his he was always saying how important it was to love children. It's called Love Beckons. Love beckons, but is this not always so? Does love, this noisy Cupid, do anything but? The promise of love bubbles in our bloodstream, forever luring us on in hope and despair, to find, enjoy, luxuriate in its embraces. A child unloved is a child bereft, robbed, ill-equipped, unable to face up to life. A child loved finds life as an open pot of honey, a feast. He can dine on in safety, knowing he is lovable. Love beckons the child onwards into a life without fear. And later, always the allure, the chance that further love lies ahead. Welcoming, always to be pursued, though knowing it may play you false, Still, a call, a mysterious whisper, a stirring of the heart, difficult to resist. Beckon on, love. You will find plenty of takers. The whole human race walks to your rhythm, longs for your touch. Love yourself, love. You deserve it. So that's his. Now I'm going to move on to my poems. So the first three that I'm going to read are ones that I wrote quite a while ago when I was in that writing circle with my dad. And I often, at that time, I often used to write about nature, as I found it was a way to help me express my feelings. This one's called Today I Am Lost. Today I am lost, a mind densely matted. The wind shoves past as a passenger I walk. Eyes drift and sink in a stagnant pool. Rustling leaves clog my ears, shouldering hedges and trees either side, whilst flies criss-cross the air, this hill tugs at each step. Then, whilst leaning on the bend, there's an opening, and suddenly the view is lit like a climax of a Broadway production. Huge marigold sun, rich like the yolk of an egg. Its light striking out, displayed across a luxurious sky. Centre stage, huge clouds demand full attention, muscling the light of this golden sunset. And now feel so glad my desert storm within brought me to find this place. This one has got, I think it's got a spiritual feel to it. It's called The Night of the Full Moon. Long awaited night softly arrives. Woolly darkness quietly creeps, soaks us through, blotting, masking, everything fully coated, zipped and fastened, so that peaceful calm fills me up. Rest, wait, be still. All is held perfectly in place by the one enormous moon. Its presence undeniable, piercing with its light and tracing all that we do, bringing gentle clarity, the wise, expansive moon. Here's another one, another nature one. It's called One Brave Autumn Day. One brave autumn day, I noticed a scene like a digital snapshot, bright and glossy. I want to catch and keep it. The trees collapsing, leaves pouring endless showers through the air, flakes of gold scattering a cobalt sky. Flickers of fire trickle and dissolve, and never-ending flow, spreading gold treasure and rubies red. The flurries surprise with flips and twirls, ending in small heaps that rest in the sun. The street brimming full. Then, the next morning early, commuters briskly walk, and there's the sound of a mechanised hum. Back to business. Wet, sticky mounds, all efficiently swallowed, and the street licked grey, all bare. Right, so the next poems I'm going to read are taken from more recently from the lockdown, when suddenly all my work ceased and I had all this spare time, and that was gave me a lot more opportunity to turn inwards and to do writing. So and that coincides with starting the writing group as well, the Subud writing groups, which I've got 2 of. And this first one talks about a change I felt happening, in that I was spending this time looking inwards, getting to know myself rather than being busy and looking outwards. And it was also inspired by a Subud receiving. It's called Head Feels Like a Licorice Allsort. Head feels like a licorice allsort. One bit from one half gets inside the other, cozy in a roll. It's feeding on stuff from my brain, doing somersaults, getting fat, not going outside my brain, knowing all about the inside instead of knowing you. My brain is getting less scared. No need to find its voice. Before, it looked like it had grown because it had to keep on changing. But now it can sit, hear itself, talk, and takes a new direction, inwards, not outwards, accommodating fear. Sometimes I feel strange in the middle, thinking I might break. Not used to being here. But it's okay. My shell is as hard as a walnut, and I cradle warm and snug. Look to the future, roll to my tune. Outside, no need to change. Inside, see me instead of you. This one's called Desire. And again, it's about looking inwards more than that. Desire to feast not on fake fancies, elegance, charm, beauty, perfection, an ice cream sundae with a cherry on it topped, but upon those stories of sorrow that make us whole and celebrate the battles where we survived well enough to relate the tale. Go back through history, lay out bare facts, hear hidden points of view, admit the feelings felt. Go back to barely notice seeds and conception, noting early days, months and years of fragile growth. Understand and learn. Then maybe your desires won't tease like unattainable goals, but materialize as a prize justly received, embrace you like a sumptuous cloak of silk, and bring sweet appreciation as sunlight unexpectedly reveals a brand new open page. The next one is called Yesterday. And it's when I thought about 2 different ways of seeing yesterday. Yesterday. With satisfaction, I see what I make today is better than yesterday. I can hang glide on the wave of time, rush, skid, swerve the bend. My cow is time, full speed ahead. But another day, I come to realise I didn't know yesterday what I discover today. And there's no running back to make amends. Like a train building speed, the world's moved on. feeling left on the platform, watching windows full of faces flick and pass, stare at my feet, a universe apart, action spent, resources dry. Oh, to drive the vehicle back. But there's no way to pass through this tough terrain of time. I'm left full with regret. This one is about my dog, my beautiful dog, who's and it's called Man's Best Friend. My beautiful dog, through grassy field, his speed exhilarates, simple, refreshing, with purpose he leaps, at one with wind and sun, then gulps from muddy puddles and sinks in flowing streams. Proud nose plays at detective, savouring smells, recorded by a nostril flicker and flagged with a toss of his tail. I love to watch as he spins through all the elements. Imagine his joy, so free. Yet, where I go, he follows, tracks my steps, explores, but always returns by my side, his master and authority, his peaceful body, breathing. And I'm aware this existence dependent on me. Next move, my command. Maybe he'll try with a piercing stare or a nudging paw, but always knows I'm where his next meal is from. My own source of life is far from that simple. Where do I look for meaning, security? Which way to go? To whom find answers? Maybe one day he will take me on a walk. His long, mysterious stare will reveal an explanation of all that is unknown. His loud, persistent bark will guide to the path of completeness, to discover the true and faithful master that rules us all. The next one is came from the prompt where we had to write about food. And I've called it The Journey of Memory Mealtime Lane. Come on now, memory mealtime store, fill me a tasty smell. Grandma's larder, whole room devoted. Crinkled brown paper nesting squares of brownies, gingerbread. Eyes behold like moons of light. Bonbon biscuits, French sponge fingers, otherworldliness, such a sight. Now take me back to nice school dinners. Waiting down the hall, up the playground steps. Will treacle cake all have gone, just leaving rice and prunes. Dreadful cold white mashed potato scoops neatly spread apart. My favourite, dark chocolate sponge and jam pink marshmallow tart. Join me to sitting round my childhood kitchen table. Best bit is the skin, Dad and me agree. He approves as I eat my little sister's potato jacket. I'm good, and there's plenty. We're all feeling full. Every plate eaten clean, completely empty. I remember secretly sneaking, opening tins and picking out pieces of chocolate from chocolate cookies. And by the window, our Kenwood soda stream, its bottles like shop bought fizzy pop, and Dad's homemade wholemeal loaf, unlike any bread from the shop. My sixth form packed lunch, 2 Ribena sandwiches with a Kipling cake, a calorie counting diet always eaten by morning break. Whilst writing, the stove is forgotten, and now the smell of an overcooked stew, burnt pan supper, a frequent memory. I think I can save it, definitely cooked through. Arriving at the end of Mealtime Lane, a message to hang in the kitchen, high above. Something I've learnt to remember, that the food in our lives must be all about love. And this last one is one I wrote about the time of the Black Lives Matter protests. It's about a woman you may have heard of called Mary Seacole. Born 1805, she was the first Black woman to have a sculpture made of her in London. And it's a very imposing sculpture. It looks over the river, over to the Houses of Parliament in London. She was a nurse and businesswoman, and she cared and nursed for British soldiers at the battlefront during the Crimean War. But her offers of help were turned down by Florence Nightingale, and she suffered a lot of prejudice, and yet she persisted to help people. Mary Seacole. Your determination points to injustice. Your struggle to serve, be accepted. Why were you shamed and denied in this broken land where we lie? Your courage, your stride takes me to weakness, to the ache in my chest, like a broken blood vessel, to trace lines in my hand to a bad, rotting root. How many wounds did your hand with compassion soothe? Behind your certitude, I imagine pain and wonder, did your hurting search out injury and loss? As you nursed those violent lacerations, patiently waiting whilst the healing beat its course, did you see, as if through galls, your own fractured self fusing with your patients? And as you nursed, did you feel all the wounds woven back together? I ask, so the aching in my chest can now be put to rest.
That was wonderful, Lucy. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow. Oh, yeah, that was fabulous. I can honestly say that of all of the people who have read their poetry on ZoomMuse, I think you're the first one who truly performed it. He claimed it. And it
well,
was...
that's my father, isn't it? The actor of my father coming out there.
Well, it's fabulous. It really is. I have a question though. When your dad, did he perform poetry like in the kitchen or in the parlor or whatever you call it?
Well, I've got lots of memories of him writing plays as a child, and he obviously would perform all the characters, and he'd be typing away and he'd be speaking all the different characters, he'd be acting them all out. And so there was, a feeling of dialogue constantly going on.
You had a
But he loved to perform them during the like I say, when I took him to the writers group run by the Afro-Caribbean Society, he loved to perform his poems and his stories.
Well, you must have had a magical childhood, is all I can say, with that kind of ongoing performance in the house. Wow. Who would like to first of all say something? Just sort of wave your hand and I'll acknowledge you. And then Marcus, go ahead. Yeah, unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, I think I have. Yeah, Lucy, I put something very similar to what Andrew said in my notes here. I think this is a new you. I'm used to you in the Writers Club, but and I've written, performing is surely in your blood. Yeah.
Well, I think that, obviously that is that's what I say. Yeah, he was a performer, and when I got him onto that, because obviously I'd not ever seen him on stage, because he was an actor when I was, you know, very little. And so it was such a thrill for me to see him on stage. I mean, and it was a big theatre. It wasn't just a little community theatre. It was a major theatre in a nice old-fashioned theatre. And I saw him on stage performing, and it was very special.
Yeah. But going back to you, I mean, you were so relaxed and confident and very well rehearsed, I felt. It really came across really well. Yeah, you really brought the poetry alive, you know, both yours and your dad's. Yeah, that was great.
Thank you.
It's wonderful.
Thanks very much there, Marcus. And who should we go to now? Riva or Raina?
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
Oh, Lucy, you are just fabulous. And I just love this whole adventure. You're just wonderful. You got to keep doing this. This is just so wonderful. I loved your father's poem, the first one you read in the introduction, that before the Zoom meeting, you read a poem that your dad had written. Oh, I mean, anyway, it was fabulous, and your poetry is beautiful. And Pip, you just miss Pip so much when you hear the poem about him. And anyway, love and kisses to everybody in the family. But I just loved every moment of it. It's just so, like everyone said, it was more that you gave it life. You know, you performed it. It was so much full of love and like eternity. Anyway, thank you.
When you said you liked the poem of my dad's that you liked the best,
remember the one you read? You read one of his poems when you did an introduction. You said, I'm going to give you an introduction to the Zoom meeting, to the Zoom.
That one. That was my poem.
Oh, that was
my
your
dad. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind. It was great. I loved it. I'd like to have a copy of it if possible. It was wonderful. Everything is just great. You're very, very talented, and yay,
Thank you, Raina. So
welcome.
So let's move on. I see Rohanna, you're got your hand up. Do you want to say something? Just unmute yourself. Go ahead.
I'd just like to comment and thank you, Lucy. I have been appreciating and enjoying the visual art presentations, and I have tuned in on a few of the poetry ones, and I have to confess I got a little restless, and I decided maybe poetry really isn't for me. I love the visual ones, but the poetry ones, sometimes when I hear a lot of words coming at me, my brain kind of rebels. And
yeah, there's quite a lot of concentration needed, I think, to listen to the spoken word, isn't there?
But I wanted to add that you lifted it up and brought it alive so well that yours so far has been the one that has kept my attention the best of any of them. And the ability to read a poem well, I realize how important that is. Otherwise, I might connect better with the written word. I know I do when I'm learning. I study Spanish, and I have more trouble learning through hearing than I do through seeing.
Yeah, I do as well. I need to see it written down, really.
But thank you for your presentation. Very well done. I love your poetry, and I loved your dad's. Very, very touching and humorous and meaningful, being a Subud member too. Yeah. I like the one about the shoes.
The first one, yeah. Well, it's quite an unusual book.
Thank you.
Let's go on. Who else wants to say something? Nobody there?
Oh, hi, Stefan.
Stefan does. Stefan, go ahead.
Well, more of the same. I had a really good time. I love the dramatic aspect of your dad's poems. I was roaring with laughter when Sandy said, "I was right." I thought, I know that man. Maybe I am that man. And but I really loved your poems. They're very nuanced, and every one is very different from every other one. You take us into a lot of different worlds, and you've got the art of making the last line very special. It gives everything a new light, or it takes it up a step higher. Really liked your
It's
last.
always a problem knowing how to end things.
You're good at endings, and I agree with what
That is not
Martha.
easy. Oh yeah, well, one thing I'd just like to mention is that what I'm, as well as writing poetry, I'm really focusing a lot at the moment in writing a series of stories for children, which in a sense sort of fits in with following on from my dad, because he wrote these dramas for, it was called Look and Read, for schools television, and which I actually saw when I went to school, because they were shown in all the schools in England. So I'm writing some stories all about a little girl called Marigold, who's really, I suppose, a sort of loud version of me, how I wish I had been maybe as a little girl. Like I say, I was quite a quiet little girl, but if I'd been maybe if I'd found my spirit more, I would have been like that I'm writing about at the moment, because she's definitely got quite a lot of guts to her, you know, and she's quite a force to be reckoned with. So I'm doing that at the moment.
That's wonderful. So apparently, because of lockdown, a lot of children now are suffering from anxiety and discouragement. So I think it's just the kind of thing that's needed.
Yes, yeah, yeah. They sort of tend to be focused on that feeling, because I'm aware that lots of children, I mean, like myself, have emotions but don't have the language to know how to explain it. And so that's the sort of thing I'm talking about in my stories, is about helping children maybe find learn the language to talk about the feelings that they're feeling.
Morris, go ahead. Unmute yourself, please. There you go.
Yeah, hi Lucy.
Hi.
As other people have said, you know, it's really nice to see another side of you from the writers group that we normally hear. But what interests me is where things come from. You know, how did the writing come? Was it? And I know you're a potter, but which comes first? Is it the writing or the pottery, or is there a connection in any way?
No, I don't think there is much. I mean, I think that the only connection is the creativity, in that when I teach pottery, I'm encouraging people to make whatever they want to make. I sort of say, well, what do you want to make? And then I help them make it. I'm trying to encourage people to be playful and to follow their dreams, you know, make their dreams a reality, make something like another potter that they admire. And I think that's what I'm about. So when I write stories, it's about, you know, recreating another world and enabling myself to go down a trip, which and discover in the you know, by being creative. And so I think that's the link.
Right. Very good. I was wondering, what was it? Was it your father's older brother? Was he called George?
Yes, yeah.
What happened to him?
Well, he went a bit crazy, to be honest, but I mean, he was an extraordinary man, but he became a spy in the army, you know, in the war. And I mean, I think that probably messed, he probably had quite a lot of traumatic experiences being a spy in Russia, and it was probably quite an extreme way to spend your 20s, and it sent him into being quite an eccentric. So when he was young, he was quite glamorous. He definitely wasn't glamorous in his old age, no.
Well, thanks very much there, Morris. Who else would like to say something? Hassana, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself.
Yes. Thank you, Lucy, and it's nice to meet you. I just wanted to say I'm a bit like Rohana in that I find it harder to process poetry, but certainly I love the acting aspect of the ones in your dad's characters, and the one that really touched me was your last one, about this woman that I can't remember her name.
Yeah, Mary Seacole. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
what was it?
Well, Mary Seacole. I mean, she is.
Yeah.
They teach about her in schools and in England. She's on the curriculum because she is.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about how much, you know, in our current world, there's so much racism and hard things, and even Florence Nightingale, who was having trouble being accepted for being a woman, wouldn't accept this woman, and I thought, oh my gosh, you know, and yeah, so but thank you, it was a touching poem.
Okay.
So let's continue. Anybody else want to say anything? Martin Inksey, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lucy, for the opportunity to enjoy such beautiful poetry. And this is the first time I joined this group. And it is so lovely. And especially I like the poems when you read it. I see pictures, how they are. And the ones with the shoes I like, and the ones with the food. And also I agree also, I was also the same with Hassana. I felt touched with the last one. It was about the lady in the war. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite one.
Yeah, I was really touched. It's very kind. Thank you once more. And
who else would like to say something? Well, here, I'm going to take the opportunity, Lucy. I loved your poem, which had the line or some sort of reference about how your head feels like a licorice allsort. Now, that's quite a strong image, and one that you know, your imagination can play with. But what struck me was one of the poems you wrote at the beginning. I think it was your dad's, which had the line, "Love beckons the child onward." And gosh, your father sounds like a beautiful person. And besides being a beauty, and then I had the image of he and you at the kitchen table, and you eating the potato skin. It's really the best part. But it seems to me that you have a very good relationship with your father. Is that the case?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there was lots of difficulties early on, but I can't. And he was a very had this passionate nature. So he did a lot of shouting when I was young, and I think we were all a bit scared of him. But I feel that through my life, I sort of overcame that fear, so to speak. You know what I mean? And in the end, he would do anything that I said. You know, I mean, for him to join a community theatre production at the age of 80, but I said, "Oh no, Dad, you've got to do it. You've got to," and he would do it. You know. So it was a bit humiliating for him as well, because he was having to do all these sort of warm-up exercises and, you know, things with, I mean, it was a community production. It had some really, you know, sort of weird people in it. But he did it, you know, and it was an experience, and it was worth it in the end, you know. So.
Well, thank you. I'm sure that all of us are eager to see the stories of Marigold, and you might want to talk about Marigold's adventures during the pandemic and how she coped with some of the difficult emotions. I think would be a help to our poor world. Marcus, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, we've seen your dad's poetry, but we don't know much about his playwriting abilities. But I had the honor of being in one of his plays, which we performed at Loudwater Farm, and then again at Congress, the same play. It was kind of like a memorial service to him, wasn't it? In a sense.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. Thank you, Marcus, because I haven't fitted that bit in, but I mean that was pretty amazing. Lovely Misha Frankel, who is a Subud member. She, after he died, I think she sort of knew him a bit, and but she hadn't realised, I think, how you know, sort of what a talented writer he was. And she said, and she was a director, and she said, oh, Lucy, we've got to put on a play of his, we've got to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful to her, because we did, and we got Marcus, we got Marcus's wife, Rosalind, and several other people to do a play reading of my dad's, one of my many dad's plays, because like I say, he was a prolific writer, and it went down really well, didn't it, Marcus?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we, as you say, it was a kind of acting reading play. There wasn't time to learn the parts and rehearse, you know, but it was great. Yeah, I loved it because I got to play the villain, and it was great. Yeah. A Cockney villain, yeah, but the parts were so well written, you know, and it was very, in that sense, it was quite easy to do, because, you know, the text was so kind of perfect, you know, and it's quite a short play, wasn't it? It wasn't long.
Yeah, well, we had to choose one that wasn't too long, because it was like, well, which play are we going to do? I mean, there's so many of them, but we chose this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't kind of amateurish in any way. It was obviously written by a professional. That's what I was trying to say, yeah. So it kind of acted out itself, you know. It was great, yeah, great to do.
I'm really grateful that we did it.
Hi, Elior.
Lucy, I just want to say that I loved your poetry, and I loved your expressiveness. And I think it's very brave. Not just of you, but of all the poets and writers that have come on, because I feel that it's a lot of the work is very personal.
Yeah.
And I think it's very courageous. So as a shy person, I'm really quite bowled over when I hear like Marcus and Stefan and Cecilia Wadi, and all of your work has such an incredibly distinct style. And I just appreciate all of it. So, but thank you so much to all of you that have come on.
Thanks very much, Elior. Anybody out there want to say anything?
Linnell,
are you on?
Again, hi, Lucy. Yeah, I was there at the British Congress when your father's play was performed, and I noticed too what they were saying. It was just, people just fell into the roles. It was marvelously professional and well done. And I had no idea what a wonderful man he must have been. And I love the metaphor of the shoes for the Latihan and guiding us through life. And it was wonderful when the kneeling of the knee and seeing the angels on both sides. I love that. For the first poem you read of his. And from yours, the true and faithful master who rules us all. There are just many beautiful moments, and everyone is saying the truth. You speak with courage, you speak with clarity. Your inner spiritual content comes through both in the writing and in the presentation. And I just loved it. So thank you very much for inviting me so much.
Thanks so much, Linnell. It's great to have you here for the first time. So anyone else? I don't want to miss anybody here. No? Oh, go ahead, Ali. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate everything that everybody's said and all of the really positive comments. And I just wanted to pick one thing out that really resonated with me. When you said about how your father's creativity and his writing and his acting was something that really made meaning of his life. And that really sort of touched me because I think that's so true. And
Sorry, what was that? Could you just say that again? Because I couldn't hear.
Oh, sorry. Let me turn myself up.
No, it's just that I think it's the internet, isn't it?
When you said quite early on that his writing and his work and his acting was something that gave meaning to his life, that really resonated with me. And that creativity and expressing ourselves creatively and having the courage to share it with others is actually a core part of our humanity. And so I just really wanted to say thank you. It's the first ZoomMuse I've been to. So thank you for organising, and Lucy, thank you for being brave enough to present.
One more kick at the can. Anybody else want to say anything? Don't want you to have any regrets afterwards.
Esther, you had something earlier, and then you got passed by.
That's it. Yes, it was simply sorry, I'm trying to get the picture right. Having heard some of the little stories of Marigold, I just wanted to alert people to maybe prompting Lucy to make them more available. And the other thing which really touched me was the poem about lockdown, and exactly what I have experienced, and in talking with friends, the experience of being turned inward. And the bit at the end about the open cage, I found very powerful. And yeah, well done. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, Lucy, I hope you've gotten enough love from us all.
Oh, I really have. I've obviously worked hard at preparing it, and I'm so thrilled to have had the chance to enjoy reading my dad's poems and then having my poems as well. So that's perfect.
Well, thank you very much. You've enriched us all by your performance of your and your dad's poetry and the comments that you've provided. What a wonderful thing we've enjoyed here this afternoon in Canada and the US, and this evening here in Europe and the UK, where most of you are. Bye for now, everybody. Take care.
Night, night.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Good night. Thank you.